nation, under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Well, thank you all for coming. It's good to see your cheery faces again. Anybody out there that has some concerns or comments or wants to get word to the board or Mr. Johnson, please just send us an email to the school district office, and we'd be happy to answer questions for you. We've had a few come in and I've answered a few and Mike's answered a few, so feel free. We'd love to hear your comments and concerns. Okay, let's move right along. Can we approve the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda for today, March 10. And I'm sorry if I cut somebody off.
You're good. I second.
Okay, you got it moved and seconded. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we got that. Thank you very much. All right, the consent agenda. Can we have a motion on that, please?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting.
Okay, it's moved. Do we have a second out there?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, unanimous on that. Thank you very much. Special presentations. Our guest speaker could not make it tonight, so we'll skip right over that. Unfinished business. Adopt revised policies, the ones that we talked about last time about sexual harassment, complaint procedures, and family and medical leave. Can we get a motion on that, please?
Do we need to read each one individually in the motion?
No, I think you could probably make a motion that is to adopt the motion, to adopt the policies as printed on the agenda would suffice.
Okay, I move that we adopt the policies as they are printed on the agenda.
Okay, we've got a motion. If we have a second. Okay, we got a second. Okay, is there any? Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or comments on those? Anybody have any questions? Okay.
I'm assuming we didn't receive any feedback on any of these, right? From the posting period?
The last I heard up until today, we haven't heard a word.
Okay.
So
Great.
We're good there. If no questions, then all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, great. Thank you very much. We've got that. Okay, budget committee update. Marilyn, have we got any new applications for that? Anybody send anything in?
No, we do not.
Okay, so we'll just keep that one posting for the one budget committee vacancy open?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Just keep it open until we get a volunteer and away we go. If we get somebody to raise their hand, it's kind of always, it seems like we're always one short on that. But
Sometimes, if any of you directors know anybody that wants to get involved, now would be the time. Recruit them.
okay, let's move right along. The new business, approve the service agreement between ZCS Engineering and the school district. Can we get a motion on that, please?
I move that we approve the service agreement with ZCS Engineering.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second it.
Okay, we've got a second. Okay, moved and seconded. Joel, you want to give us a quick outline of what's going on with that agreement?
Absolutely. So this is the same company that we approved, that we awarded the RFP, that's doing the engineering and architectural work for the seismic retrofit at Creswell Elementary. This is the actual agreement that we were hoping to get with them. It's a draft agreement, and so your approval tonight gives us, staff, Mike and I, the opportunity to finalize the agreement with them and then sign it with them. But it was in your board packet. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review it and look at it. It's a pretty boilerplate agreement. The monies that's involved with it fit within the strict parameters of the grant. It's all 100% covered by the grant, so there's no general fund dollars being used at all for this. It's all part of that grant. I had an opportunity to review it. I was satisfied with it. I also had an opportunity to contact my peers in other districts who had done service with CSC engineering and ask them if they had a similar agreement, and it's a standard agreement that they have seen before. So I didn't have any hiccups or any issues with it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know you may have not had a lot of time to review it, but that's it in a very quick nutshell.
Okay, is there any questions on that? If not, then all those in favor of that agreement, please raise your hand. Okay, we're passed. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion, superintendent board working agreement. Did you guys all have time to look at the condensed new version from Steve? Did everything look okay to you?
Yeah, I think the agreement reflects what we had talked about in our workshop with him.
Mhm. Yeah, I really liked what I saw there. Now we talked about this month, and then next month we voted in, right, Lacey?
We put this as a discussion / action because if folks were comfortable with it and didn't have any further revisions, we can make a motion tonight and adopt it. But we wanted to make sure that people had plenty of time to look at it and ask further questions or ask for more revisions if they wanted. So it's up to the group if they need another month or if they'd like to adopt it tonight.
Okay, any questions or comments out there?
How are people feeling about it?
Read through it and I felt like you're correct. It reflects what we discussed, and I feel like it's a good agreement.
I
Ashley,
agree.
are you okay?
Yeah,
Mark,
I
are you
agree.
okay? Mark, are you okay with it?
I read through it. Looks good. It looks just like what we talked about.
Okay, well, if everybody's okay, we might as well adopt it. Could we have a motion and we'll just take care of it tonight then?
I make a motion. Go
Oh.
ahead.
Sorry, I move to approve the superintendent board working agreement.
Okay, great. And we got a second?
I second.
Oh, okay, we got a second. It's moved and seconded. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Great. All righty, thank you. Moving right along. Thank you very much. Okay, discussion, superintendent evaluation. And also, we need to talk about, we thought that if everybody's okay with it, we'd have a meeting next week, next Wednesday at 6:30, if that time works for everybody. And at that time, now, Mike, you'll present your self-evaluation, right? And then
Yeah.
at that time, we'll go into executive session and we'll discuss everything and then let Mike know, what we come up with. But does that time next Wednesday fit everybody okay? Is that 6 at 6:30? It'll be a Zoom meeting, of course. So is that all right with everybody? Lacey, you're okay? Deb, that work for
Yeah.
you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
Ashley, are you okay?
Yep.
And Mark, are you okay with that next week?
I'm good.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll just plan on that 6:30 next week, and we'll set that up. Joel, can you set us up with a Zoom meeting next week at 6:30 on Wednesday?
Absolutely. And you and I can, if you don't mind, maybe you and I and Marilyn could touch base about the logistics of it, but I'll be glad to.
Okay, yeah, thank you very, very much. Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
At this point, if we wanted to move to have an in-person meeting, we could.
I just want to put that out there to the board. That's up to you, but
You mean like real people in the same room?
no way. No way. We're not talking.
Nah, no.
Would be out in the front lawn at different locations, but no, yeah, we could be
That would
be in person as long as we keep our distancing.
Uh-huh. Well, that's up to the group. I'm okay with that. Lacey, what do you think?
I'm fine with either. Right now,
Actually,
I'm still on the cautious side, so I would lean to Zoom if I was the tiebreaker, but I can do either.
Okay. Ashley, are you okay with that, or you want to stay with Zoom for a while? There's no problem with doing that.
I really don't have a preference. I'm comfortable with either as long as we have our space.
Deb, how about you?
I'm comfortable with meeting in person or keeping it a Zoom meeting.
Okay. Mark, what do you think?
So if we have it in the boardroom, do we have enough room to keep all of our spacing and anybody else's who happens to show up? Or is this an executive session where it's just us?
We'll start a session. Mike will present his self-evaluation, and then he'll be excused, and it'll just be us.
Mike,
So I would think there'd be a lot of room in there for us. We could spread out and it should be okay.
Can I throw in, I would not recommend the boardroom. Well, first of all, the boardroom's in use by technology services, but we could make it available, but I personally don't think that's enough space. I don't think it is. So you would need to use either a gym space or a library. And interestingly enough, it was just in the Oregonian Central Point, I believe, just had their first in-person meeting, and it's one of the first in the state. So if you guys are going to do this, you might be the number 2 or number 3 in the state for school boards to have, according to OSBA, having an in-person meeting.
Big media news.
Yeah. And they had theirs in a gym. They had theirs in a gym. It was a picture. It was clear. It was clearly in a gym. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you do want to do it in person, I would highly recommend a library or a gym, and we can, of course, get that set up for you.
Mike?
Yeah.
My circumstance right now, not that it matters, but I couldn't do an in-person right now because of my personal family circumstance.
Okay.
Just wanted you to know that.
Okay. Well, we don't, I don't know. It's kind of everybody's kind of a toss up.
Mike, what
I
I
don't
would
know.
recommend is leave next meeting a Zoom meeting, one, so that our board secretary will be there to take minutes and we don't complicate it. And we don't have Candace tonight. So if she's beginning to travel for her work, she will be able to join with a much higher probability if it's Zoom at this point with such little notice for the executive session.
Okay.
So I would say next week, if we can leave it a Zoom, it will keep our logistics for our last board member and our board secretary a little easier until we figure out how to return a little better.
Okay. Well, and this would be an important meeting too. So I would say let's do that. If everybody's okay, we'll just make it Zoom, and that way we won't have any complications. Candace has a good chance of being there. So let's just plan on that. So Joel, we'll talk, huh, and get it set up.
Copy that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Okay, let's move right along. 2021, 2022 budget development assumptions. Mike, you want to put in a few words on that, please?
Well, Chanel and I have been working on this. We just wanted to point out some of the highlights of the budget assumptions for the year. You've all had an opportunity to read that. Did you have any questions on it for either Chanel or myself? I'll go over the grants in a bit, just a little bit later, just to kind of explain those a little more in detail. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions from anybody? Well, seeing none, Mike, you want to do the grant update on what's going on with the grants and work right into that, please?
Yeah, because we have so many, let's see. Special grants updates. Okay, because we have a variety, so many new grants, I wanted to just kind of open it up to the board so you could see what we're working on in addition to our general funds. And so our title grants are not listed here because that's typically the grants that we use through the year to support our programs in addition to our general fund. So those are consistent and they're continuing. But with the new grants, with the SIA grant, the CDL grant, the Esser grant, and Esser 2, the CDL grant and the Esser 1 grants, those were meant to be short-term grants to help us during an emergency during the pandemic. And the grants dated back to last March when we were shut down and we had to shift in high gear for expenditures to buy technology, staffing, extra or overtime hours, you name it. Those two grants, the CDL grant and the Esser 1, the emergency grant, were both put into play at that time. And so we've backed all of our purchases from back then into these two grants. And we've used them, that we've expended these grants. So they're done. Then we have the SIA grant that through the last year we've been working on as well on our SIA plan. And so we have been able to make some hires and bring some programs in, some professional development for staff. And it's challenging to do that, to bring SIA in when we're not in person. When we're not in action and everybody's in the buildings and we can bring staffing in and get staffing in with programs and introduce and implement new opportunities for kids, it makes it challenging. But we have found some needed resources for our kids. And so we've invested in those. And that's what you're seeing up here under the SIA grant. We still have a balance and we still have some expenditures that we're planning to make for this year. And we'll ask for an extension going into the fall for some of the other expenditures that we're planning to spend after this spring and into the summer. Then we have Esser 2 coming up. We really didn't see this coming up in the Esser 2. So Esser is elementary and secondary schools emergency relief. These are all federal dollars. We didn't really see this one coming our way to this extent. Didn't know it was gonna actually happen, really, but it did. And we don't know the final details of that grant yet. We just have been received notice of allocations to districts. So we know that the state has 1 million, or yeah, we have 1,174,000. There's 174 million out of the state relief fund directly to schools. So we'll be working on that. That is a 2-year grant. The Esser 2 grant is 2 years, so it goes through the biennium, 21-22 and 22-23. So we'll use it over the next 2 years. Simultaneously, we just learned this last week that Esser 3 is now being distributed from the federal level with the new relief program that Biden has put into action. And with the new Esser 3 grant, that will be coming out at about $4 billion directly to schools, to Oregon, to schools. And so we're looking at that at being about 2.4 million to Creswell, if it all pans out. So we are, our dream, the dream in our SIA plan is to be able to offer extended year opportunities for our students to participate in school during the summer, K-12. So we're getting into gear to plan for those. One K-8 opportunity, and then 9-12 for summer school programs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that's what we see. That's the grant update that I have for you.
Wow. 2.4, that's a pretty good chunk of change coming our way. Wow. Any comments or questions out there?
Mike, will you have the same 2-year limit to spend the ESSER 3 funds that you do the ESSER 2 funds?
So they're the federal, the federal program, they just push this out. So they really didn't see that it's colliding or overlapping with ESSER 2 as much as it is. Things are not getting to our level as quickly as the federal government is pushing these out.
Mm-hmm.
So we've reached back in, superintendents, and said, when we have this one, ESSER 2 that goes to 23, we'd like to have ESSER 3 that goes to 24. And so we're going to, our state Board of Education is going to make a request to the Federal Education Board to allow an extension of that ESSER 3 grant. That would provide the stability for us to recover from what's happened over the last year and that's what the projections are, that the loss of instruction that has happened over the last year would have a 3-year effect. And so we would then be able to prioritize our next year seniors, our juniors, right in line to be able to, as well as we're working up from K through 5. So we can work it from both ends and make sure that we capture those seniors next year and the year after.
Thank
And
you.
right-
Mark, I saw your hand go up, Mark, at the same time I started talking, so I didn't mean to jump in front of you.
That's all right. So, Mike, the ESSER, what's the scope of this money? Is it in the general fund, or are there specific uses for this money?
Right. So it doesn't come into the general fund. It comes in as a grant. And this is a grant that they're requesting us to run a separate budget for. So it will have its own budget so that we can provide the reports back into ODE and at the federal level. We'll be submitting our reports back to both agencies. And in these reports, they're pretty detailed on the assumptions that we claim that we spent funds on. So it's pretty extensive. But what we're looking at, and this is just from a 50-foot view of this and what we can see and the things that we would need for our SIA that we identified through our strategic planning process to support the needs of our kids. Now we need to magnify those supports because of the gap that's grown. The gap is wider now and includes more kids in the net. So we're looking at about 50% of those grants, if we can have them for 3 years, to provide stability for additional personnel to provide support for the programs that we want to bring in to support our kids' needs. And then we have the programs on top of that, and supplies for the programs, technology maintenance and upkeep, and additional purchases to keep updated with our technology for the kids as they grow. We're going to need more and more technology because technology doesn't last long. It's a short-term purchase, really. And then professional development to implement those programs as threads through our whole program, K-12. They're bringing in, so professional development needs to come in with our new programs, of course. And then private schools get allocations out of this as well. So we have to determine the formula to provide them with their cut out of these grants.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that helps. If that was too much, I understand.
No, that's good. Thanks.
You bet.
Any other questions?
I'll add just one thing.
Oh, yeah, take your time.
Please. This is the Esser, these new levels of Esser come with new requirements and also spending guidelines. So we're getting our first review of those. I've received them this week. And tomorrow I have a meeting with Amy A., Joel, myself, and Chanel to go over those, to kind of look at where we can use these beyond what I've just mentioned to you, and how we can really get the biggest bang for the buck on addressing the needs that have been identified through our strategic planning process and our continuous improvement plan. I think we can cover it all, but we'll see. So that's the first meeting. And our principals have already provided input to Chanel on the current needs that they have in the buildings to support kids now. That would, of course, be the priority.
Any other questions?
That's all.
Oh, okay. Any other questions for Mike? Okay, if none, like move along. IDEA fiscal risk assessment statement. Mike, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I do. When I read this, I just thought, my gosh, Amy Aguero is doing a phenomenal job. And when I look down at the bottom here at the assessment review statement from ODE, and it says the combined score suggests your district is at minimal risk of fiscal instability. This score was calculated using the results of your fiscal risk assessment and ODE's records, including documentation submitted with award claims and single audit findings available at the time of fiscal risk assessment was submitted. So in looking at what all the risks that there could be under the umbrella of special services for students and those kind of things, how they can kind of work themselves out into being high risk situations financially, fiscally, and costs and finances, and all the areas that we've worked hard on to align to the accounting procedures for ODE. I just thought this is a really huge compliment, and I wanted to call out Amy and her good work in the special education area.
Great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, for all your work here. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you, you guys, and thanks, Mike. That was really nice.
Well deserved, for sure. And this whole team knows it, right? She's killing it.
Okay, moving right along. Discussion, vacant board position. I guess we're supposed to announce that David Eusted is officially resigned and we declare there's a vacancy on the board. And now we have to decide whether we want to put an advertisement out for a board member to work with us now through the election time or put that on hold. And we've only got April, May, and June before the elections, and we can wait and then see who runs for election, and hopefully that'll take care of it. But anybody have any feelings one way or another on that? I've given it any thought.
I think with such a short time until the election, I think we should just hold off rather than go through all of the I'm trying to think of a good word other than rigmarole, all of the proceedings to post it and interview and all. I think we hold off as who runs it in the election.
I agree with Mark. well.
Deb, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I agree completely.
Ashley,
Yeah, I agree.
Lacey, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah,
I think the
I'm fine.
same way. It's a lot to catch up on in a very, very short time with what's been going on. And to be fair to somebody to come in, I think it'd be better to wait, drag our feet till the election and see who gets elected and then have the summer to get up to speed. But unless anybody has an objection, we'll just do that. We'll just drag our feet, wait till the election, and then we can start the training process through the summer with them. Alrighty, that was easy and quick. Okay, moving right along, trustee reports. Lacey, what have you been up to?
I've got the leadership meetings that I've attended with you and Mike. And outside of that, I have been super busy with my job. And now that sports is back in, which I'm thankful for, thank you, Brandon, for all the work there. And the high school teachers that are getting chemistry labs and leadership club meetings and peace club meetings on campus. I am back to trying to figure out how to be a taxi driver in the middle of all of my work. I had a year off from that. And so that's an added complexity that I'm thankful for.
Great. Deb?
So I went to our board training. I also attended the QPR training, the suicide prevention training, on the 17th. It was a really good, I felt really informational. And then we had a booster board meeting, and we're just excited that sports are back. I mean, it's super exciting. And Brandon has been working tirelessly, I know. And I've been able to watch some soccer, some volleyball, and some football online. And I don't envy the people that are trying to tape all of those things and coordinate these efforts, but oh, it's so appreciated.
Oh, great. Thank you. Ashley?
I did the OSBA training. I've also been working wild hours through tax season and public accounting during a pandemic and all the new tax laws that are getting dropped. Doing distance learning with 2 kiddos who are very, very excited to be returning tomorrow. And one kiddo goes back tomorrow, which yay. And the other one goes back in a couple weeks. So it's been a little wild here at the Miller house.
Oh, super. Mark, are you out there?
I'm still here.
You don't show up on my screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, same with the rest of the folks at the OSBA training. Also attended I don't know if you guys remember, I'm involved with a group called Psych Armor. It recognizes and helps recognize and prevent veteran suicide. So I attended a Zoom webinar on that. But other than that, that's about it.
Okay. I went to that suicide seminar that they had at the school. I've been to a Lane ESD meeting. I've got to answer a few of the letters that came to the school board. And I'm super excited because I volunteered, and at last word I heard, I get to be get to do the change at the football game Friday night, unless a parent wants to push me aside. And I'm all excited about that. I refereed football for 30 years, and now I get to sit on the sideline and be silent and just watch the rest of them. And I can't wait. That'll be so much fun. But anyway, thank you all. Business manager, moving right along. Any questions for Chanel? Okay, if none, technology, Joel. Any questions? Hey, Joel, so that the new bus route is working out really good at the elementary school, I take it?
It is. It's working really quite well. Amy's loving it. I think the first day we were both out there. She was on one end and I was on this other side. We watched the buses go through. It's working very, very well, and we're pretty excited about that. And I think it may end up being something that looks more, not just a COVID thing, but a more permanent fix to some of the issues we've had in the front parking lot. And so I'm pretty excited about that.
I haven't been there. So they come in beside the school and then they just keep right on going through and come out at the high school?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we
Oh,
have,
wow.
they actually come in at the high school. They come down a service road that's been in existence for, I actually put in my board report over 40 years, but I actually looked back and it's been over about 50 years. It's a road that's been there for many, many, many years, many moons. And so that road has been there. We added gravel to it. It's had gravel added to it over the years, but we just added some new fresh gravel for the buses to make their way from the high school down the gravel road to the very east side of Crest Lane. And they sort
Okay.
of do a teardrop loop and meet their same gravel road, and they exit back out. And actually, when the high school gets on board with students being in, it's going to become much more efficient dropping off high school students, because previously the high school kids had to they had to go to Crest Lane with Crest Lane students. Crest Lane students got off the bus. High schoolers stayed on the bus, had to go all the way around down Fifth, Niblock, come back up. Now those high schoolers will actually be dropped off first, and then the buses will proceed down to the elementary school. So we're pretty excited about how it's actually having other little trickle efficiencies coming out of the project.
Oh, great. Super. Any other questions for Joel?
Yeah. Hey, Joel.
Yes, sir.
So, couple things. How's the gravel holding up? I mean, I rode my bike over there the other day. Does it seem like it's going to hold up okay when we get a whole bunch of buses driving on it?
Yes, I'm keeping a close eye on it, and there's a couple spots I'm going to look at adding some more gravel to pack it down a little bit more, and especially on the east side. The road itself has that road's been there for many, many years,
Right.
so it's got a really solid foundation. But you're right. So there's a few spots that I see we need to add some more gravel, and so I'm keeping a very close eye on that. So you may see a couple more loads coming in over the next week, maybe week and a half, to address a few spots that we need to address.
And I heard through the grapevine that there was a wetlands concern. Has that been resolved?
Yes. So, and I'd be happy to share where all the wetlands are if you ever wanted to meet me out there, and I could show you. We could be outside and I could show you. So it's interesting, the wetlands that are there. The wetlands kind of do a weird little jog along right beside the road in a very small section of beside the road, and then it jogs out towards the softball field. And then there's a little few patches here and there. And so when you see what's out there and what you see that's actually wet is not really the wetland. It's really peculiar.
Right.
But that is actually an interesting wetland. That's called a prairie wetland. And it's very similar to West Eugene. West Eugene's prairie wetland that's managed by the Bureau of Land Management and Eugene, City Eugene. Interestingly enough, we have a bigger section of wetland at the front of the high school. The front pasture field area, what used to be a pasture, is actually much more wetland than anything back there. But I checked, we're good. I'll give you a great example. There was some concern about, the gravel road impact. But what's interesting is if you're going down Highway 99 and you're going past Ricketts Road and you're headed towards Dillard, to your left is Lane County managed wetland.
Right.
It receives runoff from Dillard Road, Ricketts, and Highway 99, the dump, and Interstate 5. So we're in that same category. So if they can handle that in that section of wetland, which is much bigger than ours, we're okay. And I did cross the T's and dot the I's. So thank you for asking that, though. And I'd be happy to be out there and show you where the true wetlands are.
Okay. No, perfect. It was just something that I heard from someone, and I thought I would ask you about it, but I knew you'd be on top of it.
I think the most important thing about the wetland issue or the wetland protection is that we didn't impede any additional wetland areas.
Right.
We're just using the existing roadway.
Right. So one other thing, I was reading through the federal funds that may come available, and it mentioned federal funding for better ventilation in some of our schools to go along with the COVID upgrades or parameter. Can you give me any info on that?
Certainly. So we are pricing out, one of the easiest things we can do is actually increase our filters from, right now, we typically run, Mark, you'll be familiar with these terms, but other folks may, MERV 10s, MERV 8, MERV 10 filters, which based on their thickness and their ability to capture. So we are looking at putting in MERV 13 filters, which are the best that you can get for most air handlers. Older air handlers sometimes can't handle MERV 13 because they're such more, they're so thicker. You don't get the airflow through. But that's the quickest and easiest thing we can do is put MERV 13 filters in. That's about a $10,000, just one drop, enough filters to do all our air filters. Normally the filters we buy are about $3,000 one-time purchasing of filters for all our air handlers. It'd be about $10,000 to do a MERV 13 filters for all our air handlers. We have about 245 air filters in the district that we replace.
What's the life cycle on those?
We replace them. We were replacing them three times a year. I've increased that to every 2 months. We're replacing them right now. We're replacing them every 2 months. And so we're going to replace them with the MERV 13 filters. So so essentially sometimes when we replace the filters, they haven't had a lot of use on them, but we still replace them. We replace them every almost like basically every quarter, every 2 months. Or I'm sorry, we're going to do that every 2 months, but we've done it in the past. We did it 3 times a year. And then as far as equipment replacement, I'm looking at different options and ideas there, but that's actually a very big project. The last unit we replaced air handler was for the gym at the high school. That's a fairly large unit. There was a really large crane that had to take that off the roof. That was $75,000. That was not chump change to do. And it's not timely. It's a very complicated process. It's not quick. That being said, there may be things we can do to filters, but there may be other things we can do with our existing equipment to replace pieces of it to make sure that it's doing what we need to do. I will, if you don't mind, I'll segue just briefly and say that we have opened up per guidelines. We actually did this before the guideline. Well, it was always understood that we had to increase ventilation into the classrooms. But before it officially came down the turnpike, if you will, I had our facility staff increase ventilation in the buildings by opening up outside air to 50%. And now we're opening up to 100%. That is going to be taxing on the system. That's going to increase our electric bill. That's also going to increase our natural gas bill. But it increases the amount of fresh air that's coming in to each of our facilities. So the payoff is obviously what you want. You want that. You want that fresh air.
Excellent. Thanks, Joel.
You bet.
Oh, super. Thank you. Any other questions for Joel? Okay, if not, transportation. Any questions there?
I would just throw in a piece that Sarah and her crew have done a really phenomenal job of communicating with teachers, communicating with parents, calling parents. Her staff are not just bus drivers. They're literally tied to the phone. They're using our cell phones. They're using school phones to reach out to parents. And we've had students register because cohorting, we want to make sure who we know who's on the bus. That's been very important. So I'm really proud of that group out there. They're doing a phenomenal job. One last little piece though is it's kind of like a catch-22. We are having more students come into the building, which was what we want, but we've been providing food distribution via buses. We're looking at needing to sunset that next week. I'll be sending out a communication to the community about that, but we need our buses and we need our drivers and our aides to transport our students. And so obviously the free and reduce, or sorry, I'm sorry, the curbside continues. Free lunch service continues. In fact, I think we just got extended free lunch time on that. But the distribution from the buses becomes a logistical hiccup because we need to shift now to actually transporting students to school. So, but the crew out there is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Well, thank you. Any questions? Okay, moving right along. Special Services. Amy, you got a couple minutes to tell us what's going on?
I sure do. Yeah. I guess I'd like to highlight, so in my board report, you're going to see there's some census information that talks about our special education numbers, outplacements, interdistrict transfers, et cetera. There's a compliance review. Again, those are all state reports. So that talks about the PCR file review is talking about transition, mainly at the high school level. As students exit high school, we look at making sure that we have got adequate goals, plans, interviews. There's been a proper planning process that's happened. And so that's what that's looking at, and making sure that we have that all documented via the IEP, the Individualized Education Plan. So there's a very thorough look at IEPs. We've done a lot of professional development over the last 6 months to address some of those areas of concern, and or just to highlight how to move forward in that area of properly addressing transition services for all of our students that are on IEPs. That is a requirement that we are doing so. QPR training was the other piece, and I know Deb was able to attend, and perhaps others as well. And just there was a note in there that I wanted to highlight from Doug, one of our trainers. He is definitely willing and open to coming to meet with this school board if you would like to have him. But he wrote a really nice letter just referencing the hard work that our counseling team has done to support the efforts in mental health and suicide prevention. And there's been a lot of work that started last spring and moved into this year to help support those efforts of suicide prevention. Lastly, one thing that's not in my board report would just be the idea that you all are invited. Please let me know if you'd like me to include you on this Zoom invite, but we are doing a lift next week, next Wednesday afternoon. We are going to be looking at some alignment K-12, where we're looking at our systems, special education, interventions, supports, all throughout the district. And so looking at how we can align, really doing an inventory, a calibration. And so on Wednesday, starting at 2:00, we will have, we're partnering with a trainer out of Springfield School District, Teresa Collins, and she'll be setting the vision for our teams and really doing some team building and then setting out some homework for those teams. We will then have some work sessions in both the month of April and May with our primary, our elementary school teams, and then our secondary, which will be our middle and high school teams, really looking closely at the work that's being done, helping to make sure that we're offering the right classes for our students, have the right supports in place, and a really clear plan for intervention supports as we support our students as they enter into our school building with some very unique circumstances via COVID. So please let me know if you'd like to be included in that. I'm happy to make sure you're part of that Zoom link next Wednesday, starting at 2:00.
Wow. Any questions or comments? Thank you very, very much. Moving right along, Amy Gressling, and you got 2 minutes to tell us what's going on?
I do. Joel talked a little bit about the bus. That's been like the highlight of my life the last couple of days, only because my first 2 months on the job last year, I'm not sure a day went by that someone didn't ask me or talk to me or give me a suggestion about our parking lot. And it was something that just really bothered me. There was no immediate fix. And we realized really quickly after bringing our third graders on this year that there was no way that we were going to be able to have our parking lots work the way they were. And so Sarah and I were just having this like late afternoon kind of feeling rummy from the day conversation. And she just threw it out there, why don't we use the side road? And I'm like, we can. So it was like one of those things that just happened, and it's been a game changer. Our teachers are seeing huge improvement, and not only just the flow and safety of our parking lot, but it's also giving us more instructional time because we have a real quick way to safely get kids out. We don't have to account for as much time at the beginning and end of our day for arrival and departure. And so I'm really excited to see how that impacts positively our schedule in the coming years when we have more typical normal school schedule. So that has been exciting. And of course, having all the kids back on site has been thrilling. Through all the changes this year, the teachers have stuck with us and have worked super hard, done just about everything we can to get this going as best we can. And after every single launch into a grade level, the teachers, just the smiles on their faces has been worth all the hard work, because, you know, this is a change. It's not really another change. We're trying to look at it more of like, we're now going back to more normalcy and having kids in the classroom. That's what they do best. That's what they know how to do really well. So it's been really positive. On my report, obviously I created this before the governor's a little announcement last week. So the only change that we have to this is that our 4th and 5th grades will be starting on the 29th of April or March, right? The Monday after spring break. We originally had talked about that as a plan, but kind of wanted to wait with the spring break travel plans. So for us, it was not a huge deal to make that quick adjustment. So on that schedule, you'll notice that it still says the 5th of April, but that's incorrect. Let's see, a couple other real quick things. I talked a little bit about our diagnostic assessment, or sorry, our winter benchmarking, and how everything kind of went down. And even though that's not great in terms of looking at our fall to our winter, the winter data actually aligns really well with what we typically see in a typical year. So it aligns to what we would have seen last winter and the winter before. And so the teachers felt better about that data being a more realistic view and being able to use it as a starting point. Our school improvement specialist is now working with individual teams to do more diagnostic assessments for those students who are in the some risk and high risk categories, so we can really dial down and become more aware of what those holes and gaps are in the students' learning, so that we can better address that in the instruction. So moving forward with that, we're continuing to dig in, and having students in the classroom, we're already just noticing some huge gains, and we have a lot better impact on instruction. So excited about that. Also, looking at enrollment, that those numbers are also already very different, because people are shuffling and changing, and we're getting more and more of our students in the academy are switching back over to be in person with teachers. We've had a number of students who have returned, who are homeschool or who have left. And so every couple of days I'm getting phone calls and emails. So people are slowly coming back, I think feeling more comfortable and hearing about things from their friends or peers that it feels safe or comfortable to their standards. And so kids are starting to come back. We're also looking at doing our kindergarten registration, kindergarten roundup event when we return in April from spring break. And so we're going to do a virtual event again, just because it's a little too soon to be trying to bring families in. And then also we're in the beginning phases of planning in-person kits for this summer, which will be wonderful for our incoming kindergartners.
Can I add something in there with you, Amy?
Absolutely.
On the homeschool, I was looking at the homeschool data today, and I believe that my last report out to you was we were over 100, about 104, 102, 104 that were in the homeschool program, where we normally have about 20. I mean, 25 would be a high number. And in looking at that data, that enrollment data in the homeschool, we've had 4 students in homeschool move out of our district, but that number is down to 69 today. 4 move outs from 102, 104, pull those out, and we're down to 69. So over 30 kids have come back in somewhere, either to COA, CDL, or back in the classroom.
Oh, great. Any questions for Amy? Any comments?
Mike, the one question or the one comment I would have would be for all of our principals, which is I just really appreciated seeing the high attendance numbers in all the schools. That's been so consistent, and it's just such a great indicator of all the hard work that you're doing. So thank you so much for, I'm sure behind those numbers is a lot of personal outreach to a lot of parents, and that's really meaningful. So thank you.
One other piece to attendance, I can speak to what we're doing at Creswell, is we're also having our teachers keep track of participation, because as we know, some kids were not necessarily engaging in the learning. They were showing up or doing kind of the bare minimum to be counted as in attendance. And so we've been really working hard at that engagement piece in terms of encouraging and targeting certain students and groups of kids who've really not been that engaged in the learning to become more engaged and take responsibility for themselves and their time on screen with their teachers. And we've already noticed a huge increase just with having some of those kids returning back and just some of the incentives that our teachers and teams have put together.
That's great. Thank you.
Super, super. Any other questions or comments? Is Julie with us tonight?
She's not, she needed to have the evening off, so
Okay.
I thought she deserved it. They all do, but I couldn't say no.
Okay. Any questions about the middle school? Anybody have, maybe Mike could answer? Any question, comments? Okay, let's move along to the high school. Jenny, you got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Do we have a timer on?
Maybe 3. All right.
All right. I can talk fast. Lacey and Amy summed it up. Good job, you guys. Way to go. And that was a great segue. I know Brandon's at the top of my board report, but we'll come back to him. We'll save the best for last. And I don't want to steal his thunder because he has been working super hard both for the middle school and the high school. He's taken over those responsibilities and conned me into helping with the getting families into the soccer game. Probably one of the rainiest days we've had of sports. Maybe not for him, but whew. Coming from the Dalles, I have warm clothes, not wet clothes. So I need to go shopping. But yeah, our attendance numbers are great. And we can definitely attribute that to the work of our whole team. We every week and now bi-weekly, teachers get together when we meet as a grade level team and just really talk about those students we have concerns for. And it's amazing how involved our teachers are in just knowing what their students' needs are beyond what happens in the classroom. Because for teenagers, especially those that are 18 and getting ready to go, that's a big thing. They have a lot going on, and especially right now, families where older kids are having to work or there's things going on, families are shifting. Our staff have done a good job of staying on top of the needs of our students, and I think that shows in our attendance as well as our grades. So kudos to them. And Brandon and Risa for being in charge of kind of our nudge letters. I'm just really proud of the work that they did. You can see, I mean, our attendance numbers are great. 307 students had 90% attendance or better. That is really awesome. We have 357 total students. So that is just super impressive and good work to them. 105 of those, 100% attendance. So we have been doing the nudge letter work since the beginning of the year. And I think it's amazing that of the 48 students who fell below our target goal of 92, which is 2% above the state, 26% increased their attendance. And some of those, 4 of those, actually went from below 86 to above 92. So I think that those jumps just definitely speak to the work that our team is doing. So good job there. And then again, our numbers and academic progress, we had a big push at the end of the term to get students in for LIPI. We had another big push for students who maybe had incompletes. And we really ended up with some pretty high passing numbers. And I think that that's pretty phenomenal work on the part of our teachers. So including dual credit. And actually I learned that we get to bump the intro to business to 8 students instead of 6. So that's good news. And our NHS team, holy cow, our FBLA team, look at all those accolades. That's super impressive and lots of work behind the scenes. Kids are doing fun fundraisers, which is great. They're getting involved in the community. And our EAs, EA Appreciation Week, of course, they have just stepped up for our on-campus support while teachers have to be in the classroom, teaching and learning. Our EAs are able to come here and provide support to students individually during that time. So it's awesome. Students of the month are there. And Brandon, do you want to just jump in about sports? Can you talk as fast as I do? Because I think Mike's still timing us.
No.
Yeah, new timer
I
started
took
on
my
this.
lights off. I like to hear this.
So everybody essentially has been off and running. Middle school football has its first game tomorrow, so they're kind of the last ones to get rolling on this. But everybody else has been able to have at least one event going, which has been awesome to see everybody. I think I said 165 athletes throughout the district are participating right now, which in talking to other districts, we probably have one of the highest percentages of participation. A lot of districts have seen a pretty big drop in their athletic participation, whether it's seniors graduating early or juniors getting jobs. It's been good to see that that our kids have come out, and even came out a little bit late. They we started and saw that they were getting in a good rhythm and getting people out there. So we've even added a few people the last week or so, which has been awesome. And then just a shout out to the volleyball team. They were awarded the OSA 3A Team of the Month for February. So a couple of cool things with that. Anna Baltrich and Hannah and Erica, our coaches, are leading with our players. We have 32 girls out, which is outstanding to begin with. They spent one of their Mondays, actually President's Day, making blankets for McKenzie High School's volleyball team to kind of help them, just kind of make some really cool blankets that they got donated for the being victims of the fire, and just try to reach out and let them know that people are there for them, which is super cool. 9 of the 13 girls on varsity right now have a 4.0 GPA, and the 10th has a 3.95 GPA. They have a 3.5 average as a varsity team, which is outstanding. And so it's been, like I said, they got recognized, and they got $100 donated by Les Schwab to their program, and then got blasted all over social media for being the 3A rep this month, which is really cool.
Do you want to talk about the new shift in the spectators and happening now that we've moved into the super moderate level?
So so there's some breaking guidance changes today that was released with pretty much very little fanfare. That kind of word of mouth got going. So obviously most of you guys know that we got to move to moderate on Friday, which in and of itself loosens the restrictions for spectators. So football can have spectators now, soccer can have expanded spectators, and volleyball can have essentially spectators they weren't really allowed before. But they changed the outdoor guidance today to where your teams and coaches don't count towards your limit. So in moderate, we had a 150 person limit that included players, coaches, officials, game management, and then fans. The state has come out and said that that's no longer the case, that 150 can be only spectators. So that'll expand who gets to watch the game. So we're excited for that, and working through the logistics. We got this. I was at a league meeting today. We're finishing up, but we got it at like 12 o'clock today. So we're aligning our numbers and seeing what that means for us. Looking at going into digital online ticketing system, so where parents can get emails and reserve those tickets, so we can check those in and be efficient with that. And move towards that. So that's been exciting and a work in progress for the rest of the week as we get going. As such, we've bumped up senior nights this year to where we're going to start Friday with football and go through next week. With us being in moderate, it gives us a chance to have more fans, which more recognition for our seniors. And there's been a lot of games be canceled last week or so throughout the state, and I'm just nervous that if that happens to us, then our kids won't get a senior night. So I'd rather kind of move that up than to be your traditional last home game. So we're making plans for that as well.
Oh, super.
So if I could have like 30 seconds, I promise I'll talk fast.
Yeah, you're fine.
Our hybrid plan is at the bottom. So we're excited. We're going to start that March 29th, which is again right after spring break. We think we have it dialed in. We're still working on, some of the small details to make sure that that's dialed in, passing times and hallways and entrances and just kind of all the small behind the scenes things that need to be put into place. in order to get kids back on campus. But we have, as of this morning, 274 students of our 356 who want to come back on campus, divided into 2 groups to get them here on A days and B days. And then just to maximize instruction, we're going to have everybody stay in CDL in the morning. We just didn't feel that being on campus 2 days for instruction was enough in a hybrid scenario for our high school students. So we will continue with the morning online for everybody, and then do extensions of that instruction in the afternoon for those who come on campus, and asynchronously for those who don't feel comfortable coming back on campus. So those plans are moving forward as well.
Oh, super, super. Any questions? Any questions out there for, well, super. Well, thank you very, very much. We really appreciate the updates. Mike, you're up.
Okay, I'll use my 2 minutes really efficiently.
I'm putting my watch on now.
Okay, just wanted to give you an update on the vaccine status. As of last week, 90% of our staff who opted for the vaccination were fully inoculated. And by this weekend, that'll be 100%. So by Saturday, 100% of our staff who opted in for the vaccination will be inoculated. In addition to the number of staff that we have, about 120 that indicated to me they wanted me to schedule their vaccines, there have been others who have been vaccinated on their own that went to the clinics like at LCC or down in at the fairgrounds or wherever. So any staff member that wanted the vaccine certainly has had plenty of opportunities to do so by now. But those are really good numbers for us, and we're not even to spring break yet. Other districts in the area, they're still struggling to get their staff up to 70%, 80% vaccinated or inoculated. So we're the small districts kind of won out in this one. You know, we're just able to coordinate it quicker. Governor Brown's announcement. Last week, she announced that she will issue an executive order. So she made the announcement of what the executive order is going to have, but she didn't announce it as an executive order. Why? I don't know. So the executive order is expected to come out this week. I don't know when, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but that's what's going to happen. And then after the executive order comes out, then OHA and ODE start working to revise the guidelines. So OHA will work on the metrics. After they work on the metrics, then ODE will work on the Ready School Safe Learners guidance. And all that's supposed to be done by the 19th of March, which is 2 days before spring break. And then, as you know, when the guidance comes out, that's when we get the official word of what we have to do to adjust to the new guidance. So that's not really good news to us. That takes us back to last spring, last Christmas, you name it, where we get the new order from the governor and the guidance right going into a break. However, this time, things are a little bit different for Creswell, because in her order, she is directing, or she announced that she'll be directing, that schools go to in-person hybrid by April 19th. So she has indicated that K-5 should be in by the March 29th week, the week of March 29th, and that 6 through 12 by April 19th. So those are her orders of what she's put out there. So just to kind of give you some background, I mean, we're a little ahead of the curve on this one. Finally, we find some space in all this and our planning. It just happened to be that her timeline worked with ours. But I wanted to give you some numbers on where things will be within that guideline. And we'll take a broad view of the Lane County. So in Lane County, approximately Well, first, no, let's look at the state. Of the state, approximately 45% of the districts in the state will be in person by that timeline. In person to them, in person is LIPI, hybrid, or full in-person education. And so that's what will happen by that date, 45%. In our district, 55% will be in hybrid K-5 in March, or not in our district, in our county. 55% of the districts in our county will be in hybrid K-5. 67% of the districts in our county will have 6-8 in hybrid before April 5th, including Creswell. We're also included in the 55% K-5 hybrid in March. And in the districts in Lane County, 67% will be in hybrid grades 9 through 12 before April 5th. That's including Creswell. So of the districts, approximately 65%, 60 to 65% will be in hybrid K-12 in April, including Creswell. That's how we look out as far as where we're going to be on her timeline and where the county is going to be and what she's asking for. Any questions on that one there? I'll just stop there for a minute or a second. Okay. State standardized assessment. The federal government responded back to the states that they will not issue a blanket waiver for testing this year, for standardized testing this year. Oregon has submitted a waiver request and a second request, and we have not received a response from the federal government for a waiver, specifically for Oregon. What our State Board of Education is going to do is to take action to suspend the kindergarten assessment until the fall of 22 and suspend the essential skills graduation requirements for the class of 21. So far, that's where we're at as far as state action goes and what they're going to suspend at this point for the COVID-related requirements. Or the requirements that happened during COVID. So we're trying to work around these high stakes assessments. Any questions on standardized assessment? Okay. We had already been working around designing a summer learning program K-12. And we've been talking about it here in the district office and starting to really now formulate what we could see as a vision for a plan for K-12 summer program. And what it would look like is K-8 would be in an academic and enrichment program, which would include some instruction around ELA and math. And then in the enrichment program would be a choice program. You might have technology, you might have physical education, you might have art, you might have culinary, it's going to be an enrichment program for student choice. So how that would look as a vision is like maybe 2 hours a day would be academic support, 1 hour for ELA, 1 hour for math, maybe 45 minutes each, depends, it's the summer, so we don't want to drive it in too hard. But then they'll have an hour of enrichment activity of their choice or whatever the choice is for the week, however we work. This would be about a 4-week program, maybe 4.5 weeks. The thought of having a hybrid program where they could do some online learning so that we can maybe really make quicker gains on the gap and then have them coming in person and working in those subject areas for further support is another thought in mind. So that would be K-8. And then 912 is credit recovery. So we'd have some credit recovery options there in 912. And then looking to make some connections into LCC for dual credits through the RTEC program. The RTEC program has about 180 careers involved in it where students can look and focus on post-secondary careers and certificates or programs that they could enter into. So trying to find that connection at LCC and work with them to set this up. I know a year and a half ago, Darren was really intrigued of that, to have that connection with us and to kind of pilot that to start rolling it out. Darren's no longer there. So I'm going to have to reestablish my relationship with whoever is directing the RTEC program there at LCC. So we'll continue to work on that planning, and it will be with the Esser funds, we'll be able to hire certified teachers to go in there. The thought of that is looking at new teachers coming out of programs to give them some experience. Our teachers are going to be exhausted after this year. So try to get some fresh folks in there. There may be some teacher leaders to kind of help support those teams. And then maybe a new administrator or a position that we design here within the district to have an administrator over our extended summer programs, and then also over the academy, the online academy throughout the school year, so that we can maintain that academy presence for credit recovery and our students who are struggling or those who need to accelerate, our tag students or gifted students or what have you. But we want to maintain that program and really kind of open it up and expand it to more students while they're in school to enrich their experience, their educational experience. Big picture thinking, but we will get there. We are determined to get there. This team is determined to get there. So, and there isn't anything that this team can't do. We will have that in. We will do that. Any questions on that one or comments?
I think it's fantastic news, Mike. I know some kids may not be excited about additional school time because they just may not be. But I think from an achievement gap, trying to help our kids make sure they've got the basics before they move on, I think this is wonderful, and I really appreciate all the work and all the planning that this is going into. So good job, everyone.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on that one? New kind of stuff, but it's not meant to be a one and done deal. We want this to provide this and build it throughout the years in the future. So we really want to kick this up. Really good. I already talked to you about the Esser grants, the elementary and secondary schools emergency relief federal dollars. And I don't know, maybe we'll come back around to that just for a second. If anybody had any questions or comments about those Esser dollars. Well, that's, and then you see the other items on my February activities. If you have any questions about those or any other questions, please let me know. I'm always available for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Questions?
Mike, I just wanted to tell Mike, I love the fact that he has a challenge of trying to spend over $3 million now. Like what a fun challenge to have. Kids that need to learn and you have $3 million. Like that's a good matchup.
Yeah. It makes one think about what you could do with $3 million.
I know. I love the dreaming.
It keeps me awake.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Any more comments or questions? Okay, moving right along, board requests. Anybody has anything they want to bring up or talk about in a meeting, don't be bashful. Get a hold of one of us and let us know, and we'll do our darndest to get it on the next meeting if we can, or if not, the meeting after for sure. The calendar. Oh,
Mike,
Lacey, go ahead. Yeah.
In terms of future agenda items, in our workshop, Steve Kelly mentioned a new board evaluation that he's working on and he would like to roll out soon. I don't know if OSBA is ready to do that yet. That sounds intriguing to me as a future item, because typically at the end of a school year, we would send, isn't it the end of the school year that we would send out an evaluation for the board? So I'm curious as to what that is, if we should connect with Steve to see if maybe like a May timeframe, he would be ready to talk with us, maybe even through Zoom, to present what that is. And the other focus, we do board evaluations, but we don't do a very good job of figuring out how to create an action plan so that we can improve those areas that we're not as good in. And so I would love his help on, like, how do we get to the next step as a group?
Okay.
So if other people are interested in that, I don't want to be the only one. I want to make sure there's enough of us there that are interested in that topic.
To hear from you on that, kind of, go evaluate where we are, and then it seems like about the next, what do we do? And a good one.
Mhm.
I'll give him a call and talk to him about that and see what he thinks and get
Okay.
some input, maybe bring it up the next time.
Thank you.
No, I think that's a great idea. Any other ideas or comments or questions? Okay, as far as calendar, don't forget next Wednesday, 6:30, we'll have a Zoom meeting. Mike will present his self-evaluation and then executive session and talk about it. So look forward to seeing you there. Any other comments or questions for the good of the order? Hey, that everybody, you guys are doing a that on at you. Really, it's amazing. It's great, and thank you very, very much. Anything else? I think that's about it. Thanks again for being there, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Great job, everyone. Thank you.